Are you sure it's really you making the decisions you think you're making? You wake up and reach for your phone without thinking. You tell yourself it's just a habit, a quick check of the news, some messages, maybe a few minutes of harmless distraction. But you don't notice the deeper truth. You're no longer choosing, you're reacting automatically, like a machine running a script. This world doesn't offer freedom the way you imagine it. It offers stimulation, a constant, endless stream of triggers built not to serve you, but to keep you busy, endlessly scrolling, clicking, watching, eating, refreshing, and all of it disguised as entertainment. Every app, every feature, every notification. It's not just technology, it's bait. Pretty, convenient, and terrifyingly effective. We think of addiction as something extreme, chemicals, needles, ruined lives, but the real addiction today is quiet, smiling, normal. It's the phone in your hand, the snack you weren't hungry for, the videos you binge without remembering, the content that keeps coming, even when it stopped being interesting long ago. You're not hungry, but you eat. Not lonely, but you scroll. Not tired, but you can't stop. Why? Because it's not about need, it's about impulse. And the more you obey the impulse, the weaker your will becomes. But where did this come from? Who taught you to crave this way? The answer is uncomfortable. You were trained. Not by tyrants, but by designers. Not with whips, but with algorithms. You don't feel oppressed because they don't punish. They entertain. You believe you're making choices, but the choices were made for you. And the stronger your illusion of control, the tighter the grip. This is modern captivity, pleasant, voluntary, and disguised as comfort. Nothing is banned. You're simply too distracted to notice. There's no force, only seduction. When pleasure becomes easy and constant, it stops being a reward. It becomes background noise. And here's the paradox. The more effortlessly you get something, the less it means. So you keep chasing, not for joy, but for the next spark. One more video, one more bite, one more hit of novelty, and every time it fades, the emptiness returns. So you dive back in, again and again, not for satisfaction, but to escape the silence. Because silence is uncomfortable. It echoes, and we forgot how to live with it. The issue isn't the phone or the snack or the video. The issue is that we've forgotten how to say enough. We've forgotten how to wait, how to work for something that doesn't offer immediate reward. We want it now, fast, effortless, but what comes cheap rarely holds value. And what's truly worthwhile, real joy, real growth, demands time, presence, and discomfort. It asks for patience. You're not broken, you've just been rewired. But the good news is this: you can change the script, not with a dramatic gesture, but with small moments of awareness, choosing to pause, noticing the craving, refusing to feed it. Once, then again, then more often. Because each time you step away from the urge for cheap pleasure and move towards something real, you become stronger, freer, more alive. If you can choose from 1,000 options, but none of them bring you peace, is that freedom or just another illusion? Today, it feels like you're free. You have a smartphone, access to millions of videos, songs, articles, opinions, products, services, and people. Everything is just one tap away. The world seems to lie at your fingertips, but then why, with so much in front of you, do you feel so empty? Here's the paradox. Abundance doesn't bring clarity. It overwhelms you. You pick a show to watch, but there are too many. You want to read, but can't decide where to start. Even in relationships, hundreds of friends, and yet no one you truly want to open up to. They handed you an infinite menu, but forgot to teach you how to recognize real hunger. Society sold you a formula: the more options you have, the freer you are. But no one told you that choice without intention is chaos. That when everything is trying to hijack your attention, your ability to choose with clarity fades. You're not choosing anymore, you're reacting. You scroll not because you want to, but because the feed is engineered to keep you hooked. Every color, sound, and movement designed to manipulate your impulses. It's not content, it's bait. You listen to songs but never sink in. You watch clips but retain nothing. You eat but taste nothing, because everything you consume is crafted not to nourish but to trigger. And as a result, your brain becomes impatient. It adapts to a world where pleasure must be instant. It stops wanting the slow, the effortful, the uncertain. You begin to crave speed over substance, and little by little, you become a prisoner of this craving. Each time you open another tab, another video, another app, you're strengthening a mental pathway. Boredom, Aisha, fix it fast, and soon boredom becomes a threat. Silence becomes hostile, stillness becomes unbearable. You begin to mistake freedom for access. But having access to everything is not power, it's distraction. It's a million tiny sparks that can never ignite a lasting fire. When everything is fast, everything becomes shallow. When everything is available, nothing feels valuable. This is why joy feels distant. Not because life lacks meaning, but because your nervous system has been overstimulated. You keep chasing highs where the high has stopped working. You increase the dose, speed up the pace, but the emptiness only deepens. You feel like you can't stop because stopping feels wrong. But that's the great manipulation. They've made you believe that discomfort is a sign of failure, that if you feel bored, sad, tired, something must be broken. But here's the truth. Discomfort is the doorway to real freedom. It's the only thing that forces you to slow down and face what matters. But no one taught you how. No one taught you how to sit in silence. No one taught you how to wait. No one taught you how to be still. Instead, we were fed a culture where joy comes instantly and pain is always a mistake, where patience, discipline, and effort are treated like outdated burdens. Remember when you were a child and boredom made you invent games? Now you just open a screen. Remember when you had to wait days or even weeks to hear your favorite song? Now you can swipe through hundreds in a single hour. But are you really happier? You're losing the ability to fall in love with the process, because the process is slow. The process requires commitment, and you've been trained to fear waiting. But life isn't a reel of peak moments. Life is like a river, sometimes turbulent, sometimes still. If you expect every moment to excite you, you'll drown in disappointment. They told you, find what brings you joy, but real joy isn't found, it's grown. It comes from patience, from deep work, from effort, not the quick pleasure of a like or a 10-second video, but that grounded sense of purpose that only comes when you truly invest yourself in something meaningful. So now you're at a crossroads. One road is built of endless stimulation, fast, shiny, and ultimately unsatisfying. The other is the path of awareness. It's slower, it demands more from you, but it gives something priceless in return, yourself. If everything around you is built to make you feel good instantly, why do you still feel so empty inside? Once upon a time, pleasure was a reward. It came after effort, like a trophy at the end of a long race. Joy from finishing a book, pride in overcoming fear, the warmth of seeing someone you love after being apart. These weren't just emotions, they were experiences born from meaning, from investment, from real life. Now pleasure is a product, fast, easy, available on demand. You don't earn it anymore, you tap for it. It no longer requires patience. It's become a reflex, not a response to joy, but to discomfort. You're not chasing happiness, you're running from stillness. You don't taste your food, you consume it. You don't listen to music, it plays in the background. You don't watch films, you skim. You don't live the moment, you absorb it passively, and yet you remain unsatisfied. Why? Because true satisfaction requires presence. And you're rarely present. You might be sitting there physically, but mentally you're halfway between a notification and a new tab. Everything that demands immersion now irritates you. A slow book, too boring, a quiet video, not engaging enough, a real conversation with emotional depth, too draining. And slowly, your world fills with things that are easy, but none of them feel real. You may not notice it consciously, but you feel it. That quiet apathy, that lack of spark. You don't exactly want anything, but you feel like something's missing. Deep inside, something aches, like you've been feeding on cotton candy. Sweet, colorful, fun, but empty. This is how artificial pleasure works. It shouts, it flashes, it grabs, but it leaves nothing behind. It isn't joy, it's a simulation of joy. Not fulfillment, but a quick jolt. Like fireworks in the daylight, loud, flashy, and ultimately pointless. Your brain adapts to lights, to sounds, to sugar, to attention, and it always wants more speed, more flavor, more dopamine, less silence, less patience, less depth. But real joy doesn't grow this way. It fades, and now even simple things lose their beauty. Silence becomes unbearable. A regular chat feels dull. Food without flavor enhancers seems bland. People become disposable when they don't entertain you. Everything that doesn't stimulate is discarded, and that means you're no longer living, you're self-medicating. You become like someone who's lost their sense of taste, eating without pleasure, watching without wonder, listening without connection. Because your senses have been overloaded and pleasure has been numbed. This is why anxiety rises, depression grows, a sense of disconnection spreads. We consume 10 times more stimuli than we did 2 decades ago, and yet we feel 10 times less alive. Because pleasure without effort is like turning up the volume when the song is already broken. There was a time when you could sit quietly with a cup of tea and simply enjoy the moment. Now, you need to pair it with a video, a scroll, a playlist. Being alone with your own mind has become unbearable. Why? Because in that silence, your real self starts to speak, and you've forgotten how to listen. Modern society doesn't just teach you how to enjoy, it trains you to avoid discomfort at all costs. But the truth is, real emotions live inside discomfort. Real pleasure doesn't come from tapping a screen. It comes when you immerse yourself, commit yourself, show up fully. It comes from effort, from depth, from choosing what's meaningful, not what's easy. That's when life tastes rich again, not in a burst, but in fulfillment. And that taste, it's irreplaceable. It doesn't come fast. It's not for everyone. It asks you to pause, to sit in silence, to pass through boredom, fatigue, and emptiness, and find the depth that's been buried beneath the noise. Because that's where real pleasure lives. The kind you've been chasing all along, in screens, in food, in distractions, but never found. What if the comfort you chase is the very thing destroying your strength? We live in the most comfortable era in human history. You don't have to hunt for food. It's delivered to your door. Boredom, you've got entertainment in your pocket. Cold, the climate adjusts itself. Everything is optimized to remove friction, to make life easy, simple, convenient, and maybe that's exactly why strength is disappearing. Here's the paradox. The more we chase comfort, the less capable we become. With every removed challenge, every shortcut, every effortless option, we lose something essential, the ability to endure, to go deep, to grow. We've confused comfort with happiness. We think, If it doesn't hurt, it must be good. If it's easy, it must be right. If it's fast, it must be better. But the truth is this: everything meaningful in life requires effort. Love, purpose, mastery, integrity, growth. None of it can be built without struggle. And if you can't handle discomfort, you can't build anything that lasts. So when something gets hard, people now tend to walk away. If a relationship gets messy, they leave. If a job gets stressful, they quit. If a goal takes too long, they drop it. We haven't been trained to go deep. We've been trained to switch. The system taught you this: don't endure, escape. Don't commit, replace. Don't grow through pain, avoid it. And so comfort has become a tool of suppression, robbing you of the very traits that make you strong. Because real strength is born when you stay and when you walk through the storm, not around it. You tell yourself you're choosing ease for peace. But deep down, a part of you knows you're losing respect for yourself, because you know you could have stayed, you could have pushed through, you could have grown, but you chose comfort. And now you're addicted to it. We say, that's just how I am. But no, that's how you were trained to avoid effort, trained to believe that if it's not working instantly, it's not meant for you, that if it's painful, it's not worth it. And that mindset is what kills potential. Think about it. How is strength built? Not through ease like a muscle. It's developed through resistance, through small decisions, daily endurance, staying the course when you could have quit. Strength begins right where discomfort starts. But if you press quit every time it gets uncomfortable, you don't just stay the same. You get weaker. Because each time you avoid struggle, you strip yourself of your inner foundation. And that's exactly what the system wants. A strong person is hard to manipulate. A strong person doesn't need approval, doesn't chase dopamine, doesn't rely on convenience. A strong person can wait, choose, focus, resist. And that makes them dangerous because they can't be controlled. Strength isn't loud, it's not aggression. It's the quiet ability to stay in boredom, in uncertainty, in silence, in the tension of a difficult conversation, in a long-term project that hasn't yet paid off. That's what freedom really is, to remain when it's not comfortable. But we've become allergic to even small discomforts. We've replaced challenge with shortcuts, process with hacks, discipline with motivational slogans. We're always looking for a detour because we're terrified of facing our real selves. Because when you sit in discomfort, you're forced to meet who you truly are. Not the version you present to others, but the one behind all the distractions. And yes, that's hard. But it's also where real growth begins. You won't become strong unless you move through your weakness. You won't gain patience unless you practice waiting. You won't gain depth unless you face solitude. It's uncomfortable, but that's real life. Unfiltered, unoptimized, and alive. You want to be happy? Learn to endure. Endure boredom, endure silence, endure failure, endure the waiting, endure not being validated, endure because you know what you're working toward. And then comfort will return to its rightful place as a reward, not a lifestyle. It will feel sacred again because it will have been earned. It will warm you because it came after the cold. It will mean something because you chose it after the work. Comfort isn't the enemy. But when it becomes your compass, it becomes your cage. You think it's laziness. You think you're not capable. But the truth is simpler. You've forgotten how to stay in the hard moments. And if you realize that, you can begin to rebuild your strength. Strength isn't about perfection. It's about resilience, about showing up, about coming home to yourself, about being able to say, this is hard, but I'm not backing down. What if your entire life isn't your choice, but a chain of impulses and someone else is already holding the leash? You've walked through habits, through the illusion of choice, through synthetic pleasures, through the soft prison of comfort. You've seen how the modern world doesn't break you, it soothes you. You're not forced, not punished, not hunted. You're simply entertained. And you don't resist because you've grown used to it. You've gotten used to distractions, to instant rewards, to fleeing anything difficult. Silence, stillness, boredom, depth. You're no longer a prisoner in chains. You're a willing consumer of illusion, not because you're weak, but because you've been conditioned. That's how the system works. Not by attacking you directly, but by making you so dependent on ease that you're no longer capable of choosing discomfort. And that, right there, is the beginning of true slavery. Because real control isn't fear. Real control is when a person doesn't even realize they're being controlled, when they believe they're choosing to scroll, to tap, to quit. But deep down, they're not choosing. They're running a script. Apps, platforms, content, algorithms, they all exist to keep you in motion, to make sure you never stop. Because if you stop, you might start to wake up. And a person who wakes up is dangerous. They ask questions, they slow down, they turn inward, they can't be controlled. So the system keeps feeding you one pleasure after another. So you never feel the pause, never feel the wait, never feel the loss, but also never feel freedom. You know your focus is shattered. You know silence makes you restless. You know you keep doing the same things even though you're aware of the trap. Why? Because awareness is not salvation. Only action sets you free. You can understand the system and still stay trapped in it your whole life. Because the escape doesn't happen in the mind, it happens in the will, in the ability to say, yes, I want this pleasure, but I choose not to take it. That moment is freedom. Freedom isn't doing what you feel like. Freedom is the ability to not do what you feel like when it's destroying you. It's not the absence of rules, it's having rules that come from within. It's owning your attention, your time, your choices, and if something inside you trembled while reading this, good. That means you're not lost. That means something inside you still wants to fight. That spark can become a flame if you're willing to act. And what does action look like? It's not about becoming a monk or disappearing into the forest. It's not about deleting all your apps. It's about micro decisions. In the moment, saying no, pausing, not giving in, remaining with yourself. You won't fix everything overnight, but you can start with one moment, one no, one refusal to escape. Every time you stay in the silence, every time you choose the hard thing, every time you turn away from cheap pleasure, you're not just building discipline, you're taking your life back. And one day you'll wake up, look in the mirror, and realize you're no longer dependent, you're no longer running, you're no longer lost in noise. You're alive, you're present, you're free, and pleasure, it finally becomes what it was meant to be. Not a trap, but a reward. Not an escape, but gratitude. What are you willing to change starting today to stop being a slave to instant pleasure? Drop it in the comments. Right, I choose control if you're ready to make that first small but powerful step. Let that be your first act of freedom.